Welcome to Write Now Workshop Podcast, where you can write a book and change the world. I'm your host, Kitty Bucholtz, and this is episode 279, Marketing That Feels Good, an interview with Sarah Santacroce, coming to you on Thursday, December 16th, 2021. Hello, my people. How are you? I hope you're having a good week and a good month, and whatever season of the year that you're in, whether spiritually or weather-wise or holiday-wise, I hope it is treating you well. I hope that you are taking care of yourself, which kind of leads me into the little second announcement that I just wanted to let you know. If you haven't listened to Sunday's Encouraging Words episode yet, I announced my difficult decision to put the show on semi-hiatus for a while. So I'm not feeling willing and able yet to say that's it. I'm done podcasting because I love it. But as you know, during the last 4 years and nearly 300 episodes, I've been encouraging you and myself to do what it takes to stay physically, mentally, emotionally healthy, healthier and happier in every way that you can, because I really believe not only is that good for us as human beings, but I think it's one of the best things that we can do for our writing. So I talk about this in a little bit more detail in Sunday's episode 278. If you didn't hear it yet, you can learn more about everything that I was thinking and my plans. So the show will continue, but on a limited basis for a while until I figure a few things out. I need to add more physical health and mental health and emotional health to my life. And one of the things that I need a lot more of is writing time. I have not been writing as much as I want, and that makes me, I don't know why, but it makes me just mentally unhappy. And then I get anxious and sometimes depressed. And when I'm writing, I feel like, oh, the world is bright and lovely again. So I don't know what that means. Maybe if you're a therapist, you do, but if you're a writer, you probably do understand a lot about what that feels like. So because this falls under the practice what you preach banner, I thought it was important to not only do it, but also to explain it. Because if there's any way that I can be a good role model for you, I want to do that. And I think that part of that means being transparent, telling you what I'm doing and why, and encouraging you to think things through a little bit yourself. I mean, it is, after all, about to be the beginning of a new year. And maybe there are things in your life where you're like, you know what? I really like this, but I don't have enough of that in my life. And this is pretty much what happened to me. So I'm going to let go of this thing that I really like so that I can have more of this thing that I really love. I hope that that is encouraging to you. And in general, I always want this podcast to be something that lifts you up, that gives you things to think about, and that in some way helps you to improve your own writing. So meanwhile, while we're talking about writing, I have a fantastic guest today. I think that Sarah has some brilliant ideas. They're thoughts that I've sort of thought on and off for 20 plus years, but felt like it was just me. There's something wrong with me. And it turns out that may not be true. So Sarah wrote a fantastic book and has a wonderful podcast, and is going to explain to us her way of doing marketing. I think that you are going to resonate with a lot of the things that she says. So let's go listen to Sarah. Today's guest is Sarah Santacroce. Over a decade of running a successful LinkedIn consulting business inspired a yearning in Sarah to create a global movement that encourages people to bring more empathy and kindness to business and marketing. As a hippie turned business coach, Sarah has written 2 books, hosts the Humane Marketing podcast, and works with heart-centered entrepreneurs to question their assumptions when it comes to marketing and give them permission to market their business their way, the gentle way. Sarah shares a fresh perspective and doesn't shy away from calling things out that no longer work for many of us when it comes to the current marketing model. Her clients sometimes refer to her as the female Seth Godin. Welcome, Sarah.
I'm so glad to be here. Hi, Kitty. Good to speak to you.
Yes, this is fun. You and I have been sort of chatting on and off by email. Went to one of your webinars. I bought your book. I am totally on board with what you're teaching and what you're doing with your life right now.
Yay. I'm so glad. It's always so reconfirming and encouraging when you have like one other soul who's like, yes, yes, keep going.
Yes, exactly. And I have to say, I never really, I don't think I've ever compared Seth Godin with every single other person that I've learned from about internet marketing or marketing in general. But because of, my age and the time of the world that we live in, it's pretty much internet marketing. But when I read that in your bio, I was like, yeah, because Seth has this like gentler but straightforward approach. Like he's not pulling punches, but he makes you stop and think like, why are you doing this? Or why are you saying this? I'm like, yeah, that is what I feel like when I'm reading your book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not me. I still kind of feel self-conscious when somebody reads that bio, because it's some of my clients who said that about me. And I'm like, really? I'm going to put Seth Godin in my bio? That sounds so pretentious. But that's exactly why also it resonates with me, because I'm like, yeah, Seth is one of these people that I always respected because of the way he called things out that were not working. And, he was just like walking his talk all the time.
Yeah. Now, let's be clear with the audience. You aren't actually a book marketer. That's not what you do. But I happened to hear about you because you were on Joanna Penn's The Creative Pen podcast. And so when I heard you speaking about marketing in probably, I can't remember exactly now, it's been several months, but in probably a more general sense, I still remember I was jogging. I remember where I was jogging through this field. And I was just like, in my mind, I had like my mouth open, my jaw dropping. And I was just like, this is the kind of thing that I've always wanted somebody to tell me. There's another way that works, and here's permission to do it. So first of all, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's really the biggest piece, right? It's the permission slip that we're all waiting for. It's like deep inside, we know that the current way is just not working for us, but we're like, yeah, but everybody else is doing it. And so, yeah, this is your listener's permission slip today.
I love it. Now, again, my audience may or may not be following a lot of the internet marketers that I follow. I have more of a business than just the writing. So there's a lot of things that I'm marketing in my business. But in general, I'm sure we've all gotten these emails where at first they seem benign and nice enough. It seems like the personality of the person is coming through, but there's a point when you're getting to like the last 4 emails that all come in the last 2 hours before midnight, that you're just like, seriously, this, obviously these emails were in your queue. You not pre-recorded, but like you made them earlier. So some of them I'm just like, it's beginning to sound a little false to me, because I'm like, yeah, so many people have complained that the cart needs to be open a little bit longer. So I'm keeping it open until midnight. I'm like, okay. Pretty sure you wrote that like probably a couple of weeks ago, but okay. So just tell us, how did you get into this idea of doing marketing a different way?
Yeah, it's quite the story, actually, because I've been in this online business since 2007, 8. It's a bit blurry because I started my business while my kids were still young, back in the time I was in California. So in the middle of the social media boom. And yeah, I really grew up in this online marketing world and used it extensively to build my LinkedIn consulting business. And you know how things are when you don't really look at them, don't really pay attention to them. It's like, oh, everything is okay, right? Until it isn't. And so that's what happened to me a few years ago. I kind of coincided with my turning 40. How these things often go.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I can no longer do business and marketing the way I've been doing it. Yes, I've built a successful quotation marks LinkedIn consulting business, but it didn't make me happy. I felt like I'm, abusing my customers or my potential clients, I'm using these manipulative techniques. I always tried, it's still me. I always tried to use them in a more gentle way, but still, yeah, I was doing the programmed emails and just using the templates that were out there. And we're all doing it because that's what we are taught. That's how marketing works. And so sitting on my therapist's chair, I really had this breakdown and said, look, I think I'm not made for business. I can't do it. I just feel too much. It doesn't feel good. And so that's when I was kind of looking at this fork in the road and say, well, either I give up or I come up with a different way. And that's what I did. That's kind of also the time that I had this epiphany. This term came to me called the gentle business revolution. And then I really thought that's what we need. We need more empathy and kindness, more gentleness in business. And of course, for me, being in marketing, I know I needed to start with marketing. Yeah. So that's how it all came together. Yeah.
It's funny. I have a business degree. So I was in university from 1986 to 1990. And I remember 2 or 3 times, you're 18 to 22. So depending on how you've been raised and how you consider that you should be interacting with people who are in a position of authority over you, a lot of times there's not a whole lot of question asking and you don't ask the questions that you want to. But a couple of times I raised my hand and I was like, I'm not comfortable with doing business this way. It sounds like we're, and I didn't know the right words to use. I didn't know to think of a word like manipulation, but I was feeling like it sounds like we're manipulating the customer to buy something for our benefit, like not necessarily for the customer's benefit. Hopefully it will be good for you, this Johnson & Johnson shampoo or this book or this car. But really what we're interested in is that you help us out by buying our product. And I was like, yeah, I don't know that works for me. And I had so many male teachers over the years, male teachers or like supervisors or bosses or whatever in jobs, say to me, and this is why you won't be successful, because you women think that you need to put your feelings into things and people don't buy things that way. But now, years later, what I'm hearing all over is you need to appeal to people's feelings because people buy based on feelings. You need to tell the story of your business. That's what makes people buy. So I just think it's kind of funny that for me and in my life, it's come back around full circle. And I don't know like where it is historically in the business world. I can only give you, my experience of it. But I love that there's somebody like you who's saying, and you should do it, and it works.
Right. Yeah. I think that's really the permission slip we're talking about, because to tell you the complete truth, Kitty, there's still a lot of resistance, of course, to what I'm saying. All the big marketers, and mainly they're male, but let's not, generalize, but mainly the resistance that I've been getting was from the male marketers. It's like, well, how do we prove that it works, right? That's what the left brain wants to know. The analytical brain wants to know that it works. And the thing is, when I was actually doing the research for the Marketing Like We're Human book, it was actually really more difficult to find the stories of people and businesses where it worked, this more humane and gentle way. And the reason for that is that those kind of businesses are not the ones that yell the loudest and say, look at me, how I built my business overnight and, how I created a webinar and made $1 million. It's not those kind of business owners. They're just quietly running their business, loving what they do, selling their books, but they're not yelling it from every rooftop.
Yeah.
So that kind of was my answer. I'm like, well, it works. It's just like, it works, and it's different people for whom it works as well. And the other thing is it works on the long term. And what we've been trained to believe in is short-term results. And so that's also kind of in the opening pages of the book. I say, look, if the old way still works for you, and that's where you're at, you're just not ready for a different way. That's when we change as humans. We don't change when things still work. We change when things are broken. And so if we feel like A, it's not giving me results, this, hypey way, manipulative way, and B, it makes me feel like crap, then it's really, then you're interested in something new. But if you're still in this trance, I call it a trance of just, doing things, hustling, and getting instant results, well, that means you're not there yet. You still are okay with the old way of marketing, really.
Yeah.
So
and I do know a lot of people who have very successful businesses, 6 and 7. I know somebody who's very close to 8 figures, and they really do have a heart for being themselves, being honest about who they are as a human being, and that they really do want to help people. And some of their marketing includes, if you're this kind of person, you're my person, I can help you. If you're this kind of person, I may not be able to help you. I may not be the right person for you. And I definitely am also more interested in that kind of marketing, even when they, in the end, still use some of the tools that kind of annoy me. Like, I'm kicking around the idea of doing this class, and then 2 days later, I've gotten so much response that I've decided to for sure do this class. And then I was in a marketing class where they like actually gave us these emails, and they're like, this would be email 1 on day 1. This is email 2 on day 3. And I'm thinking, so I've already decided to do the class like a month beforehand, but I'm sending an email on the 3rd day saying, oh my gosh, I've gotten so much response. I'm like, why am I lying to people? Why can't I just talk to them about what's really going on?
Yeah, it's this cookie cutter approach that why they do it, because it sells, because people want easy solutions, or at least they used to until now. And I think they still will. Some of the people will just want easy solutions, tell me how to sell my book. Well, yes, I can sell you a $97 course that pretends to tell you how to sell your book, but unfortunately we both know, and the audience also knows, that it takes more than that. So it's all about bringing more honesty also to marketing, and none of this bullshit. I think a lot of people now, especially we've been through over the last 2 years, or in the US even prior to that, we want the truth. We don't want to be manipulated anymore. And so people, I think, more and more are going to see through all these kind of shady techniques, and they're going to be turned off. Another thing I want to say is, like, I'm not pointing fingers at these people who are doing it, because it's just our society who has kind of agreed that's how marketing works. And so it will take some time for people to realize, what, actually it doesn't work for me anymore either. And so, yes, I need another way. But right now we're still at the very beginning of this change. So I'm not at all pointing fingers, and I'm saying, hey, been there, done that as well.
Yeah, totally. If I sold Captain Crunch cereal, of course I would be buying a lot of commercial time on Saturday morning, or, between 4 and 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday, because that's when my audience is watching TV.
Right.
So it's not like I am wanting to throw out, as they say, the baby with the bathwater. I just want to not make it feel inside my stomach that gets all cramped up when I feel like I'm lying. I want to stop feeling like I'm lying or manipulating people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about specifically how we can use this in book marketing. Now, again, that's not what you do. So if anybody is listening going, oh, great, I can hire Sarah, that's not what you do. You work with businesses selling other kinds of products, and you can talk to us more about that in a minute. But when it comes to book marketing, one of the things that I thought would be interesting, and this we'll have to make sure that we're speaking clearly about all the phases of this very cool colorful wheel that you've got to people who are not watching the YouTube version. But you've got this great one-page marketing plan that's color coded, and it's using these words that I'm like, yes, when I'm selling romantic comedy, I want to talk to you about my passion and why I love books that make me laugh and books that make me go, oh, which to me makes up a romantic comedy, like just as one example. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah. So I'm going to hold it up for the people who are watching us on YouTube. So the 7 P's of marketing is a marketing concept that I didn't invent. It's been around since the 60s. But what I did do when I looked at the 7 P's of marketing, the existing model, I was like, well, some of this is so outdated. Like there was a lot of P's in there, or 3 P's in there that were relating to place and physical evidence. And with our online business, is that stuff doesn't matter so much anymore. It's not like we're creating signage and all these location-based things. So I kicked all of these out, and I brought in the ones that you mentioned, kind of the more personal, more human elements like passion, personal power, and the other one I brought in was partnership. And when I looked at that, and by the way, the shape is the shape of a mandala, and the mandala is Sanskrit for creative process. So really, marketing is the creative process, and it's, the previous version of the 7 P's were separate circles, 7 different separate circles. And to me, that just didn't make sense. I needed it to be a whole, a part of a whole, and with ourselves in the middle, so that when we market from this wholeness, from this whole space, we really market from within, and not, are not just in the doing, but we're much more in the being. And so that is a main probably differentiator from traditional marketing. Every marketing program I've ever taken is all about doing. You got to do more to, that's what we think of as marketing. We have to do certain things. Well, what I realized as a marketer myself, what is equally, if not more important, is the being. And so you mentioned passion. Well, if we don't start with our passion, with something that we're passionate about, well, how can we market with more fun and joy and passion and all of that? Then of course the marketing is like this horrible chore that we have to do, and it's just not fun. So I brought passion first, and that is like super important to realize, well, why are you writing this book? Why are you enjoying this certain topic so much? The second P stands for personal power. So personal power is where you as the author comes in. It's like, well, how are you unique? How are you different? How are you wired? What did you enjoy doing when you were a child? Are you introverted? Are you extroverted? Do you enjoy talking to people? All these things that make you who you are. And that is so important for your marketing, because otherwise you're going to be bombarded by everybody else's shoulds. It's like, you should do this, that's how you're going to market your book successfully. Well, what if it doesn't work for you? What if that's exactly the wrong thing for you?
Yeah.
It's a lot about empowering entrepreneurs and authors to really pay attention what works for them, not letting yourself be influenced by someone who says, you have to be on YouTube. You have to now create this great YouTube. Well, what if you hate video? Like that's just like the most draining thing for you to do.
Yeah.
That's why personal power is so important, to find out more about who you are.
Yeah. And the other thing about personal power is that, like so many novelists that I know, there is some element. Okay. So I've been, writing in the romance side of genre fiction for, oh my gosh, I'm not even sure, over 20 years. Wow. So a ton of people that I know who are novelists are writing some form of romance, or there's romantic elements or something like that. But the books that I love, with or without romance in them, are about characters who are finding and using their personal power. And I'm thinking, what a great way to market that to me. I mean, over my shoulder, I'm often pointing to my collection of Jim Butcher books about Harry Dresden, the wizard who helps the Chicago Police Department solve really unusual cases. And I love it because it's about this man who's like totally different from all the people around him. And he's among the people that he should feel comfortable with. He feels on the outside like maybe he's not good enough and he doesn't follow the rules right and he thinks differently. And I think, oh my gosh, I so get you, Harry Dresden. Like I feel that way on so many levels. And as he grows through the books and learns new things and becomes, more of this and more of that, and like some of his weaknesses get lessened, which is always something that you want to happen in your own life as well. I every year when there's a new book, I love him more. And I think that if Jim Butcher or his publishing company, it happens to be a traditionally published book, were talking about in any way, find your own personal power by following this wizard through Chicago, I'd be like, yeah, hey, you know what? I've never heard of this, but that sounds really interesting to me,
It's so true. It's so true. If you write novels, you have all these other people that I would guess, I don't write novels, but I would guess there's some piece of you also in some of these people that you have in your book, right? And what a fun way to then talk about these people and their personal power to market your book. Yeah, that's a great point.
And I think that that's kind of what you were hinting at the very beginning when you were saying that you just need to find whatever is the truth about you and the way that you think, and whether it's your fiction or nonfiction, and present it to people as like, here are some things that you might want to know. So it's not necessarily, the marketing isn't buy my book, which all of us who are in the publishing industry, whether traditionally or self-published or hybrid, doing both, we all know it's not about saying buy my book, but how can we make people interested in looking into, maybe I would be interested in buying your book. And these are some of the things that we can use, these things on your marketing wheel, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's the stories that go around, your book. And then, by the way, I've written a book about that. So yeah, the other piece, if I just hold it up again quickly, one, I think important one is the partnership as well. And I've seen, Mike Michalowicz, that's another, writer, but also definitely a business owner. I've seen him doing that really well recently, and he's never done that before, but I'm like, oh, wow, he's paying attention to partnership. He partners up with John Yanch and Dory Clark about, creating a common webinar where they share content about their specific topics. And at the end, they all mention their relevant books, and that's it. People show up for the content, and then of course they want to go buy the book, because that's a natural next step. So I love that idea of partnering with other authors as well. Like, how can you make your book part of a series, but not necessarily your own series, but someone else's book as well? And then, it's always more fun to market something with other people as well.
Right. And I know probably 8 to 10 years. It's been thankfully a fairly popular marketing technique among writers. And I'm speaking specifically about novelists right now, though my guess is it could work pretty well in nonfiction, is people will do group promotions that's really aimed at a category of readers who likes a certain genre or subgenre or topic. And so you might have, I've seen up to 50 different authors all doing a group promotion together. And I'm thinking, okay, as a reader, I'm thinking too many.
Right. That might be a bit much.
Yeah. But to get an email that's like, here's 5 romantic comedies that are out right now. And here's a little bit about, like, I don't know how I wrote it or what it's about, or, having 5 different authors share the other 4 authors' books. Here's 4 new books that you might not have heard about. And I say that, and then you say it, but my book is listed in one of those 4, and so now it's going out to potentially 5 times as many readers. And that is a particularly easy technique that you can use if you really don't want to be out amongst people. If you're not really an extrovert, don't want to be on video, don't want to do webinars. But if you are interested in webinars and that sort of thing, what I haven't seen, and now I'm thinking, Sarah, I need to get some other authors together and try this, do a webinar where we're talking about, where it's specifically aimed towards readers, not writers. And we're talking about each of our, 5 different authors, 5 different romantic comedies, how we came up with the idea, the problems that we faced, like our favorite parts, read, a page or 2 from each one. And at the end, it's just a list of links. It's no pressure, no hassle. It's not like buy my $2,000 program. It's just like, if any of these books sound good to you, here are our links. And we would love for you to click on these links in order to join our email list and hear more about more books by this or this or this author.
Yeah, it's kind of a behind the scenes of, how the book came about. So yeah, I think that is low pressure, it's like, it's marketing, but it's not actually, because you're actually sharing real value with the people who attend the webinar. And then of course, yes, you're going to mention your book and people are like, where can I get the book?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Okay, you know what? I am going to tell you how that goes, because I'm going to go round up some people and we're going to do a webinar for all of our readers.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Now, you've got some other items on your wheel. I've been calling it a wheel, but on the top it says the 1-page marketing plan. So yeah. I'm not sure what you call it.
I call it the mandala because it's in the shape of a mandala, but it's also the 1-page marketing plan.
Okay.
With the 7 P's of the Humane Marketing Mandala. That's right. The full name. Yeah. So the other ones are people. So that's obviously your readers in the case of, authors. So every marketing program I've ever looked at always starts with your target audience or, your avatar. I feel like it's important, but to me, it's more important that you look at the other 2 P's first. Only then are you ready to, start to resonate with your people. And so that's the same for your ideal readers. You do need to do that research and really think about, well, who's an ideal reader for my book? Because if you don't do that, well, they're not going to feel concerned. Yeah. And so when I wrote my books, I had a very, very clear idea of who they are. In my case, they're very similar to myself, but that's not always the case as an author. So you need to really get into your readers' heads, but also into their hearts and really figure out, well, who are they, and go deep with it, not just the generic demographics and where do they live and how much money do they make. No, like really the feeling part is important here as well.
Yeah.
So that's the people. Then product, well, in an author's case, that's the book. So clearly, it needs to be a beautiful product. I think back in the days, and you're gonna chime in here because you know more about the industry, but I think people are looking for beautiful books now. They, it's surprising because my book, I thought most people would buy the Kindle version. I'm surprised that most people buy the paper version.
Yeah.
I think it's because we're going back to, beautiful things. And a Kindle book is, yes, it's easy to read, but it's not beautiful. It's just
right.
Black and white. And so think about, and that doesn't, of course, apply to all your audiences, but it does matter for, I'd say, probably most audiences, not the horror genre probably, but the other ones, yeah, pay attention to your book cover, of course.
Yeah.
Not just book cover, but also like the content itself, like how it's, laid out and how it's presented. I think all of that matters more today than it did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
pricing, well, you need to figure out the ideal price for your ideal clients and readers. Not going to go into too much. You probably talk about that more often on your podcast. And then promotion is really this idea of giving yourself permission to tune in on one or two things that kind of go hand in hand with who you are. So it goes together with personal power, and not doing everything because, you're listening to too many podcasts and they tell you that you have to be everywhere and do everything. It's not humanly possible to do everything, especially as just a solo author or entrepreneur. So really giving yourself permission to do that one or two things and do that well, and say, I give myself permission to do just that, and that's going to be enough.
Yeah. I love this. This is great stuff. It's definitely ringing true with me and the way that I feel and think. And particularly as a novelist, but even the nonfiction that I write, it comes definitely, from my heart as well as my head. And so I just love the way it kind of resonates in me. Like, this I can do, this I'm willing to send out an email every week instead of an email every time. I can get up the courage to say something that, I don't know, maybe I'm just going to be annoying people. And I hear this a lot, and I hear it in myself sometimes too. I don't know anything interesting to say today, so I think I'm just going to skip today, and I'll send another newsletter out next week. But then next week you feel the same, and then you're like, oh, now I just feel nervous. I just feel the pressure of, it needs to be so interesting to my readers, and then I stop emailing.
Yeah, it's just so much self-pressure, isn't there, about marketing? But really, when you bring more of you into your marketing, that's when you really start to feel, I think, it's kind of overrated, this word authentic, but it just is going to really feel like you, instead of feeling like you have to apply these templates that then don't feel good. And you're like, really, can I send this out? This sounds so obnoxious. It sounds like I'm always talking about myself. And yeah, no wonder we don't do it then, because it just does feel like I'm always talking about myself. Yeah. One thing I did with the second book, so Selling Like We're Human, I got the courage to ask a whole bunch of people to beta read the book and then give me an advanced review. And so now they're coming in, and I'm sharing just kind of a visual on LinkedIn with the extract from that advanced review. And I feel good about that, because it's not me, shining my own spotlight. It's like other people saying, this is a good book. And so it feels really good to me as an introvert to say, look, people have read the book and they liked it, and not just me going, look at me, I'm such a great person.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one way to do it.
That is a great segue, because I really did want to also talk to you about your books. So you have two. Tell us a little bit about them, how they're different, and also the new one at the time that this episode goes live will be brand new, just recently released. So be sure, let us hear about both of them, please.
Yeah. So the first one is Marketing Like We're Human, and the second one, Selling Like We're Human. And so Marketing Like We're Human, there's a whole other story involved into that, kind of had to do with rebranding. I won't go into it here. We don't have enough time, but if you do happen to get the book, you'll see it in the first few pages, because I kind of ran it as a second edition to explain the story of the rebrand. But it really is kind of this revolution cry, and saying we need something different. Heart-centered entrepreneurs, authors, business owners, we need a different way to market. And it's structured in 3 sections: Rumble, Rise, and Resonate. The rumbling part is kind of what we just talked about. It's like finding out who you are, what you stand for, what your values are, your worldview. Then you go into Rise, is where you really give yourself permission to be different from everybody else. You don't have to be the same, and bring more of you into your marketing. And then Resonate is where you bring that in, and then it starts to resonate with your people. So it's a really different approach approach instead of, creating something like you mentioned before, back in your business days. You're like, yeah, we felt like we just, created a product and shoved it down people's throats. It's this different approach where you're like resonating with people, and they actually come to you because they're like, this really feels good. I want more of that. So that's kind of the structure of the marketing book. I really felt like I needed to bring a lot of my stories into the book. So it's a very personal book. It's a very vulnerable book. And it felt scary to put that out there, but it needed to be that, so that people could really resonate with it. Because I know that my story, a lot of other entrepreneurs and maybe authors felt the same way. And so having it there and saying, you're not alone, I think that's really the permission slip that people need right now.
It's so funny listening to you talk about how it's showing you a different way to market or to find, your marketing voice. It sounds so much like the way that many people explain how to find your writer's voice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking this is kind of interesting, because it's like, I found my writer's voice. This is how I write a novel or a nonfiction book. Now I'm going to find my marketing voice. This is how I talk about it. These are the stories that I tell, and stories and other ways that you're telling the world about your book in a way that's more a story. This is why I wrote the book. This is the thing that I think is funniest in this romantic comedy, or, whatever it is. I'm just thinking, and that's a whole new idea for me to think about. I just need to find my marketing voice. And then I bet all the stress and tension and pressure will really fall down to like very manageable levels.
Yeah, I love that. I do actually really love that, because that's also what I mean. I'm a first-time author. And so I had to really, kind of wrestle with that and say, well, do I just write this how to do marketing book? But I'm like, but that's not the story that I want to tell. It's not just, here's how you do marketing. It's really a revolution and saying we can't go on with this. And so that was my voice. And that is still my voice in my marketing, because it's part of my worldview. And so I wonder if you find your marketing voice, it also has to do with your worldview. So what matters to you, in the world as large, and that's going to be part of your marketing voice.
That's interesting. You've definitely given me something to think about. I hope other people are going, yeah, let me think about that some more. Okay. And so tell us about the selling like you're human.
Yeah. So selling like you're human is it's an interesting story as well, because never in a million years did I think I was going to write a book about selling. I was still the person who said, I hate selling. And, I just want to have conversations with people. But then in my Humane Marketing circle, my community, people kept confusing, first of all, marketing and selling. They're like, well, is this marketing? Is this selling? So there was a lot of confusion around that. And then my book coach also told me, what people want is the selling, is the sales. And so maybe that's what you got wrong here. And I'm like, well, that's funny, because it's a real marketing concept that goes, sell them what they want and give them what they need. And so I was doing the completely wrong thing. I thought what they wanted was marketing, but actually turns out what they want is selling. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll write this book for selling like we're human. And I, again, had to really give myself permission to forget everything I've ever learned about sales, because nothing ever worked for me. I'm like, how can I even have a voice, in selling if I still hate it to this day? Like, how am I going to write a book about that? And then slowly I started to say, well, you know what? I'm going to do it the same way I did it with marketing. I'm just going to come up with something completely new. It's going to be like, completely radical. But for my people, I think it's going to work, because they want something different. And so I think it turned out to be a beautiful book about sales in a completely different way. I think it's really going forward, it's not just for heart-centered entrepreneurs. It's going to change the way we do business, coming from this idea of what if we just brought the human to the sales conversation instead of always having this agenda of we got to get the sale? What if I talk about this idea of the serene garden? So what if we had human conversations in a serene garden where two humans show up and both want the best for each other? What if that was sales from now on?
I
So
love that.
yeah, excited about selling like we're human as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I can't wait to buy it and read it because I like the first book so much, and I'm very excited about reading the second one too.
Thank you.
Oh, listen, as always, we could talk about these things forever because I love all these topics, but why don't we let people know where can they find your books? We looked at the one-page marketing plan. So where can people find everything about you?
Yeah, so the website, I have two websites, humane.marketing. So no .com, just .marketing. And the other one is my personal one, sarahsantacroce.com. You'll put that in the show notes. It's a bit hard to spell. So the one-page marketing plan is at humane.marketing/one page. So humane.marketing/one page. And that comes with 7 email prompts that do kind of help you reflect on these different P's rather than just have a blank page. That takes you through the 7 P's to help you reflect how that applies to your, book writing business. I do also have a podcast that is called Humane Marketing. So you'll find that on your favorite podcast app. The books, the first one is humane.marketing/book1. And the second one, book 2. So humane.marketing book 2.
And is it the words written out, TWO and ONE, or the numbers 1 and the number 2?
Yeah, sorry, numbers. Book 1 and book 2.
Yeah. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, I know from experience to everybody, I have actually been on both of Sarah's websites. There's so much great information, and either the way that I'm consuming or the way Sarah's marketing what she has available, I'm not sure how, but I don't feel overwhelmed by what I'm learning. So I just want to put that out there as a user. So thank you again for that, Sarah, not making me feel like there's so much pressure to hurry up and do these things.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It's something that I think we always need to be mindful. How is the other human on the other side receiving this? It's like, is there pressure or is it empowerment and encouragement?
I love it. I love it. That's one of my favorite words, encouragement. I always like to be the encouraging person. And sometimes the encouraging person is saying, you're at a place now where the best thing that you can do is buy this book or buy this product because it's going to take you to the next step.
Yeah, exactly. It's gentle encouragement to, act, because if we never act, then, we stay at the same place. Yeah,
exactly. This is great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us and to encourage us and give us really specific ways that we can become better marketers and feel good about it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Kitty. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much.